Andrew, my dad, I saw him the other day and you absolutely murdered him with your pregnant meerkat.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. I got like that one stuck. I got several emails that were like, hey, pregnant meerkat guy. And I was like, I preferred Yankee Doodle Panther. I agree. It's funny. But I'm going to push more to the Yankee Doodle Panther than I look like a pregnant meerkat when I take my clothes off.
The thing is, it's not like a you thing. This is my dad and I were talking about. Like, we don't see you as the pregnant meerkat, but I can just see all the other people with the body shape you're describing as the pregnant meerkat. Mm-hmm. So it like wasn't you. I want to make it clear that like I wasn't laughing at you, but the image is so perfect to describe that body.
You're allowed to laugh. Like it'd be so I think we did that on the bonus episode for listeners. By the way, because Justin's not here. All order and discipline is broken down. I'm eating my breakfast. I don't care. I'm gonna push Will around. I'm drinking a beer. It's like noon.
Well, what's fun is Will, the host, thinks it's funny you're eating. Will, the editor, later in a few hours will be so mad at you.
Nice. You're gonna have to cut out all that smacking noises. Because I think we dealt with that on the bonus episode. Listeners that are unfamiliar with what we're discussing, I was complaining the other day to Justin and Jen that I like undressed to take a shower and saw myself in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, I look like a pregnant meerkat. Like I'm really skinny, but kind of bulging at the middle in a weird way now. So that's where that comes from, just so people know the line.
Such a good image.
So Jen, I'm sure that we will revisit this topic because we have footage coming out. And when our dear leader, Justin, returns, he'll want to talk about it. The Tomatone concert was really funny. It was really funny.
Oh, I'm so happy. Did the kids... did they think it was cool or were they being dragged along with this weird old people just brought us weird toys?
I think the answer to that is a resoundant yes. Some of them thought it was really, really funny. And some of them clearly thought this was the dumbest thing that they'd been asked to do. But it was lots of fun though. We came in, I don't know who it was. Some kid was extremely excited to see us and like waved at us like, like our uncles are here. They did Thus Sprach Zarathustra. And they did Duel of the Fates from Star Wars. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds absolutely ridiculous. Picture a bunch, like literally picture 40 Japanese robot kazoos trying to sing Thus Sprach Zarathustra. It was really, really weird and funny. I felt good because like they started doing it. And it's all these very pleasant Midwesterners in Indiana. And they're very earnest. And even though they're behind us, because I've got a lot of Midwest in me, I can feel their confusion. Like you could sort of sense the body language of the room going, this is stupid bullshit. Are we allowed to say? Is this what kids do now? They do stupid bullshit. So Justin and I just start laughing. And then the room's like, oh, everybody here knows it's stupid bullshit. We're having fun with it. We don't have to pretend that this is like a violin concerto. And yeah, it was fun.
That's so awesome. I'm glad you guys had a good time. That's
I wish you'd been there for two key parts, Jen. Actually, hold on one sec. I should probably record this just in case. And Will, you can cut this part out.
While you're doing this, I'm going to close this window. It's loud.
Cool. Heaton, remind me where you are again?
I am
You're in Virginia, right?
Alexandria, Virginia. Or Washington, D.C. if you want to do the intro. Either way's fine.
I didn't actually think we were starting the episode, so.
Oh, no, we've been recording the bit. This is recording, right? You got the overtone stuff?
No, you might as well.
Yeah.
So, Jen, the two parts that I genuinely, I wish you'd been there, but for two parts in particular, I really wish you'd been there. Afterwards, everybody clears out, but there's the stragglers of students that wanted to come talk to Justin and I, the suited up dudes that showed up in a limo. Like we are a topic of conversation there, that these two grown men who are apparently globally successful podcasters because they've rented a limousine, they wanted to talk to us. And I'm being conversational and I go, so you're juniors, seniors, what is something that you think your generation's going to deal with that my generation's not dealt with? Because I think young people are actually pretty smart. And one of them goes, he thinks about it and he goes, housing, we're not going to be able to afford houses. And I was like, well, you're talking to a renter, one, but two, this is important. Everybody come here. Zoning artificially restricts the supply of housing and it drives up the prices. So I was able to spread the good word. And then the bit that I think you would have found that funny, Jen, because it was like just Heaton sliding it. But the part that I wish you'd been there for, there was a
Did
really
Justin roll his eyes as hard as I would have?
I think Justin was like arm wrestling the gym coach or something in the corner at that point. Like he was doing his own thing.
Checks out.
The bit that I really wish you'd been there for, there was this really cool young lady who's a senior, and she does the she works at the school newspaper, and she was excited to come up talk to me as a journalist. And she went, I love journalism and I want to do journalism. And when I go to college, I'm planning to do that in the state capitol. And I'm planning to start a podcast called Legislature Watch, where I will watch the legislation going on. And I said, that is stupid. That is a waste of your time. You don't want to spend your life doing that. Listen, hold on. You see that colleague Justin over there? My colleague Justin and I are members of a very exclusive investment club. And I think we could open up some doors for you with Southwest Airlines if you would like to get an internship. And so we were able to talk her out of that journalism. And I think now she's working for Exxon.
Thank you for making my blood boil this early in the morning, Andrew. Had she ever heard of me?
I made her up. I just did that to piss you off.
Here I am thinking I have a little protege.
The zoning thing happened. The zoning thing. No, I just wanted a joke to do the Southwest Airlines bit, and I don't know. I thought it was funny.
It is funny, but now I'm sad. I've always wanted someone to want to do this.
Though.
Jen,
I think the zoning thing is Heaton's girlfriend from Canada.
Yeah. That's like, why would Heaton make that up? Jen, you should get an intern. Like truly, probably remote. But you should make an announcement and say like, hey, I would love to mentor somebody. And I would love for anybody that is in college or just out of college that's looking to get into journalism. Like I could teach you stuff. And intern might not even be the right thing, but you should mentor somebody if you'd like to have a kind of journalistic protege.
The thing is, no one wants to do what I do. So I've had some people over the years. There's actually one guy who got the podcast, like he started California Dish and named it that with my permission. So it's like people have wanted to copy what I do, and then they try it and they read the legislation, and it's actually less the legislation reading and more the paying attention. They're just like, this sucks and I don't want to do it because it's making me mad all the time. So people have shown interest and then they disappear, and this has happened so many times that I'm not trying to drag anyone into this anymore. But if anyone is ever interested, I mean, I exist. So there is some path to financial stability in it. I don't know.
There's a lot of high school students that, based on that limousine, now think podcasting is the way to get status and money.
Yeah, but then they listen to the last episode of this podcast and hear you guys bitching about how expensive the trip was. So it takes away some of the allure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. One would hope that they'd feel like, one of the kids actually was like, I'm going to take radio TV segment next semester. And I was like, first of all, it's cool that you guys have that. I don't think we had that at my high school. We just had cows. But he was like, I'm going to do that. And he's like, maybe I'll become like a professional podcaster. And I'm like, that's awesome. It took me about 15 to 19 years to get paid to do that kind of thing. So like, keep it up. If you start doing it right now, by the time you're graduating, your master's degree, maybe you'll be making money again.
I mean, it took me 5 years. I think the key is we're doing something of value. And this is what I say at the podcasting conventions, where it's like you talking to your friends. I know you think you're hilarious. That doesn't really have value. Like even this podcast, if this was all we did and we weren't bringing our three shows together.
This. Don't fucking kick the tree too hard. Let's not. Okay. But there was an addendum. All right.
Yeah, because I think the reason I'm valuable on this show is because of Congressional Dish. And I think the reason you're valuable on this show is, you're a trained comedian and you're a historian and you've done so many interviews and you've had so much life experience and you have the political orphanage and you have this business, Fox Business, history. Like you have a lot of stuff that you're bringing to the table. Yeah. And then there's Justin and
yeah. That's that guy, the other guy.
Yeah. But he's a legit political expert
on a 3-person podcast.
Yeah. But you see what I mean? Like the three of us built things that are of value. And so now there's value in us talking to our friends. But there's a lot of people that get into podcasting, seeing Joe Rogan's success and go, well, me and my friends are hilarious. I want to do that for a living. And it's like, no, you actually have to bring something. You have to create something other than your own conversations. And I think that's where the dream of podcasting falls apart for a lot of people. But people who are doing research or exposing people to new authors or whatever, but you have to provide some kind of value aside from your conversations. But there is a path to success in this, and I think we are proof of it, and it doesn't take 15 years. No, it took 5.
I should it's more like if I look at my career holistically in terms of comedy, it took me about 15 years to start getting paid. But if we're just looking at podcasting, no, pretty quick, went very well for me.
Yeah, because I think you started after me. I started in 2012. When did you start?
I started much later than you. I started 2018.
Okay, so you got paid pretty quick.
Yeah, but
you were also building on your other shows. Like
I had a different end than most people don't get, which is I was hosting a television show on a network, and it was a podcast simultaneously. And when I left, I was able to keep the RSS feed. So I had like my own starter leaven to get the bread going. In a way that like my sci-fi podcast, Alienating the Audience, which is fun, took a lot longer to get anybody listening to it, and still never quite as big.
Yeah, I was a complete unknown. So my timeline was 5 years until I got really like any kind of money at all. Because, people were helping me cover my costs after about 2 years, but I didn't make money for 5. So, but that's a path.
I worry, Will, that Jen and I might get into a podcaster feedback loop. And so I'm nudging you to kick off the episode now.
I was about to jump in and say people should just do what I did, which is enter a podcasting competition and then impress one of the judges so much that a few years later you're here filling in his spot on a political roundtable.
Oh, should we mention where Justin is, by the way?
That's simple. What's that?
People might be curious as to why you're here, Will, and Justin's not here.
Let me do.
He's in the running for the new pope. I'll just break the news. Yeah. So he's in the conclave.
Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
100%. Jen's correct. Justin is super Catholic. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but he's really into Catholicism, and he has told me multiple times that if they call him up to be pope, he will dump Ashley in a heartbeat. He will move on and become the pontiff. He has a lot of thoughts on costumery. And also on indulgences. So he's in Rome right now, hanging out with cardinals.
And he's very excited to be wearing the cardinal hat. Mm-hmm. That's really what he's in for.
Absolutely. From Buffalo, New York, I am Liz Saddleberg. From Southern California,
I'm Jen Briney.
And from Alexandria, Virginia,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong. On today's program, we're going to be talking about Real ID, which is happening. It's happening today, which is shocking because I was 10 when the Real ID Act was enacted. Actually, I didn't look up the date. I might have been 9. Depends on when my birthday fell. And we're going to talk about cardinals. We're going to talk about the conclave that is kicking off. As well as the 2024 film Conclave, which I might be the only person. Have you guys seen Conclave?
I saw it.
I watched it last night.
You watched
as homework.
it? Awesome. All right, excellent.
I saw it in theaters.
You saw it you bought a ticket for that?
I was like, what happens if my buddy Justin becomes Pope? I need to see this. I need to see this documentary.
That's true. I'm a bad friend. I should have. That's a good reason.
Justin, we do have a message from Justin at the top of the show notes that I will read now. And I did tell him yesterday if I had had more time to prep, I would have found a bunch of magazines and glued this together to look like a ransom note because it reads like a ransom note. I am writing this from the jury room of the Travis County Courthouse. This case is ridiculous. The fact that it is taking up a week of my time should be illegal. Have a good show. Justin is in jury duty. He is stuck in jury duty. He was unable to escape.
Mm-hmm. It's going to come for all of us. I can't I just can't give up my Oklahoma driver's license. I have not lived in Oklahoma. I lived in Oklahoma for 6 months in 2021. But outside of that, I've not lived there for any stretch since 2009. And I just can't. It's almost like forfeiting my passport or something. I can't I love Oklahoma and I love Scotland. And I can't whenever my driver's license up for renewal, I will fly back to Oklahoma to get it renewed, to be like, the son has returned. And one of these days, they've called me once and been like, jury duty. And I was like, oh, I don't live here anymore. And they were like, okay, for now, like you need to get a new license from whatever state you live in. If it happens again, they're going to be like, yep, you're here for a month for murder duty or whatever. And that'll just be
so.
I
just stopped by my dad's house, and there was a brief moment of like maybe 6 months where I was using his address, and this was at least 4 years ago. Since then, I have had a Washington State driver's license the whole time, and I just got a notice from them at my dad's that they're like threatening to arrest me now because I haven't responded to my jury duty, and I was like, I don't live here. I haven't voted here in years. I've never had a driver's license at this address, so I just don't understand. My dad's like, well, you should log in and tell him you don't live here. And I'm like, but I don't live here. Maybe I don't do that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I should log in or not, because then they know that I have a way to get the summons.
I would,
but
if there's a bench warrant out for your arrest, I feel like that might be the kind of thing where you want to call them and talk to them.
Yeah, probably.
I'm thinking.
Now you're making sense like my dad.
I mean,
you two are annoying.
Jen, I would find it hilarious if you got arrested in California.
I know, right?
For skipping jury duty. It would make for a really funny episode of the show in which Will would fill in for you.
I was going to say,
as your friend, I do think it would be best that you solve this with the state of California.
And tell them I've literally never lived at that house. Yeah, I should probably do that.
When we bought this house 3 years ago, that was when I changed my address from like my parents' house for the first time, because when we had apartments, I just left it. And 2 months later, I was summoned for grand jury duty. And if I hadn't changed it, I could have probably argued that I lived in a different county, and I didn't apply. But I did. They wanted me really badly for grand jury duty. And like the day before I was supposed to go in, I got sick. I had like a cold or something. And I emailed them and I was like, hey, it could be COVID. I'm not sure. And they were like, you're deferred. Don't worry about it. And I was like, damn, I got to keep this in my back pocket for a while. Like, I don't know if it would work now 3 years later, but at the time they were like, oh, it could be COVID. Like, stay home. And I was like, yes, that's the key.
I've always wanted to serve on a jury, and they won't let me because I had a cousin. He's a second cousin who was a Simi Valley police officer who was killed in the line of duty. Yeah. And so in Los Angeles, like every time that I tell them that I have that history, they're like, and you're dismissed, because they think I'm going to be too sympathetic to cops. And it sucks because I want to be on a jury. So it's like, if I'm going to go all the way down there, but nope, I've been dismissed, I think 4 times.
I wouldn't have minded like normal, like what Justin is doing, where it's probably going to be a week and then he's done. Yeah. The grand jury was like, you need to be free from July to October and maybe beyond. And every day you need to call and see if we need you to come in. Like every day at like 7:30 a.m., you will call an answering machine. It will tell you if you need to come in or not. And I was like, that sounds impossible. Like you won't be able to go on vacation. I had like work trips lined up that I had to be like, hey, like I might not be able to go on these actually, even though they're in 4 months, because I don't know. So it was I probably wouldn't have pushed to defer that if it had been normal jury duty. But the fact that they were like, yeah, we need 3 to 6 months of your life. I was like, I don't think so. I have other things to do.
Yeah. Hard pass on that.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the film Juror Number 6?
No.
Which was, I think, Clint Eastwood's latest film.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did.
I did a bonus episode of my program about that, where I brought on. I've got a defense attorney that I keep on retainer. I say that a listener of the show and my friend, like I gave him $1 one time, and if I get arrested in New York, he's promised to come bail me out of the clink. But he's a criminal defense attorney, Paul. In fact, he represented El Chapo at one point, and so he knows defense attorney stuff real well. And I was like, do juries actually just try to get shit done so they can go home on Friday? And he's like, absolutely, yes. Like that is like a terrifying feature of the American justice system that's kind of unavoidable. Is 3 o'clock on a Friday, they're like, Jeremy, can we just agree the fucker killed him? Can we just go home now? Let's just go home. Like there's some push there.
Interesting. I
Makes
believe
sense.
it. Yeah. Jen, I see here in the show notes you were actually gifted an automaton. I don't know if you got it yet. It would say blue ice cream colored automaton.
It's probably at Justin's, but I'm excited. The next time I go into the studio, I'm going to be all kinds of obnoxious with it.
Nice.
Because I do want to play with it.
Hey.
So thank you to whoever sent that to me. I'm excited.
And fuck you to whoever sent that to Jen. It's going to be a miserable edit. It's going to suck.
Accurate. Yeah. You give me a toy, I turn into a 3-year-old.
No, that'll be fun. I feel like we'll hear more about that next week when Justin's back.
And we've got a
little
video
taste
we're
of
going to
the
show too.
beginning.
So they'll be
Awesome.
fun.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Cool. So tune into the video next week. But for now, let's talk about Real ID, which starting today, as we record this, U.S. travelers aged 18 and older must present a Real ID compliant driver's license or an acceptable alternative, such as a passport or global entry card, to board domestic flights or access certain federal facilities. Real IDs are marked with a star and require proof of identity, social security number, and residency during application. While 81% of U.S. travelers already possess compliant IDs, those without may face delays or denial at TSA checkpoints. Children under 18 are exempt if accompanied by an adult with a valid ID. Travelers can still obtain a Real ID after the deadline, but should anticipate longer processing times and potential travel disruptions. And in fact, New Jersey, I have written down, is only at 17% of New Jersey residents have Real IDs. And apparently, like, people are staying up till midnight to grab slots at the DMV to apply. So it's real.
Fun time at
the
the New Jersey State DMV, a place that I would love to go under any circumstances.
Imagine like staying up to get a DMV slot, like you're buying like Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts to me. It's nuts.
And I bet everybody's going to be real nice to those DMV people. I bet they're having a great day. This is terrific for them too. Everybody wins.
Well, and the TSA agents.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be good. The Real ID Act was enacted in 2005. It was initially slated for enforcement in 2008 when I would have been 13. However, its implementation has been delayed multiple times over nearly 2 decades. These postponements were due to various factors, including state-level resistance, logistical challenges, and the COVID-19 pandemic. The most recent extension occurred in December of 2022, which pushed the enforcement date to today, May 7th, 2025. Heaton, is this going to stick, or will they water it down again?
I think they've probably finally got it about where they want it, but there's going to they'll probably water it down. Yes, I think they're going to exempt it. Like they'll have like random exemptions for it. I think that's already there, where they've basically gone, look, you need this to enter a nuclear facility, which the average American does at least twice a week. I know I do all of my shopping at nuclear facilities, or to fly on a plane. TSA has told us this for a very long time. So I think that for people that are flying, they're more apt to know. And after 17 years now, 20 years, because it was passed in 2005, right? And then it was supposed to go into effect in 2009, and it's been delayed 7 times. I think after 20 years, they finally, through some combination of grants threatening to withhold federal funding and just giving them sufficient time, they finally got all of the states to comply. So the DMVs in all of the 50 states are doing it now. So it's just a question of everybody updating it. So I don't think that I think it's here.
Yeah.
I don't think it does very much. This is such a weird push. Like I'm going to defer to my esteemed colleague, Jen Briney, because this happened in Congress, but I believe, Jen, this got snuck into a war funding bill. Like it was just kind of tagged onto something. And it was 17 years of states fighting it tooth and nail for one of 2 reasons. They were either doing it because I think this is the main reason. States don't like unfunded mandates. Like if you go, hey, you have to do a bunch of new stuff that's going to cost you time and money, but we're not going to give you any money for it. We're just telling you to do it. Like that sucks. States have limited budgets. They have attenuated staffs. So you just have to do more stuff. Like that has real consequences on stuff they got to cut. So they were fighting it, I think, for just money reasons. But there was also an ideological concern that this was going to give the federal government all of the necessary tools to enact a big national identification register, which in turn could be used for a surveillance state, a la China, something like that. And the issue that I have with all of this is that both the threats and perceived benefits are entirely potentialities. There's no actual thing that this is looking to solve. It's a potentiality. The reason that it got made in 2005 was we're very much in the height of the war on terror, and they go, okay, of the 19 terrorist hijackers that did 9/11, like, I don't know, 15 of them, 17 of them just had regular state IDs and were like legal to be in the States anyway. But 3 or 4 of them kind of used a loophole in a state DMV in order to get their ID to go on the plane. Like maybe if it had been up to the feds, they would not have been given a driver's license, but they could just give them their name and like proof of address, but they didn't have to provide a social security number. So it was seen as a potential hindrance within the state administrative systems. And so this was really a way for the federal government to compel every state government to up the game in terms of the rigor with which they issued IDs. The thinking being this will stop another 9/11 from happening. That's what we're worried about. We're worried that terrorists might get fake IDs because fucking Idaho just isn't doing the heavy lifting in terms of vetting these people. And so that's potentiality one, is this going to solve for terrorists? The problem with this is it's been 20 years. It hadn't happened again. So I don't think that was actually a big threat. It turns out we were fully capable of dealing with this in a patchwork way using various state apparati. And the other potentiality is the big surveillance state. But either way, it's a potentiality that you're either worried about it as a potentiality for terrorism, or you're opposed to it because you're worried about it as a potentiality for state surveillance and whatnot. And I just kind of look at it and go, I'm not sure that this actually solved anything. It just seems like kind of a big hassle to not change a lot.
Well, there's another factor that was a part of it at the time, because I remember this was a huge deal here in border state California. At the time, there was a big Republican hissy fit about the idea that people who were here in the country, either illegally or on green cards, but like weren't citizens, were able to get driver's licenses. Because if you think about it, a driver's license is there to tell you this person knows how to drive, has learned the rules, has taken the test. Like that's what a driver's license is for. It's not meant to be an identification of like, yes, this person is a citizen. And so part of the Real ID movement was to make it so that in order to get an idea, one of these IDs, you have to say that you're a citizen. So that's one of the distinctions you're going to see now, is that if you have a Real ID, you've proved your citizenship. And if you have a straight up normal driver's license, that means that you probably haven't. Now, I don't quite understand why it's necessary to prove your citizenship to fly from Dallas to Orlando. Like, I don't understand why that's necessary. And I also remember on 9/11, the bigger issue with 9/11 was not the fact that these men proved that their names were what they said they were. It was that we had privatized security that had customer service with a smile that let them walk around the metal detectors at Logan Airport and get on the fucking plane. Like, that was the bigger issue. So it's a symptom of us solving problems we don't actually have. But it is also another anti-immigrant step. Like, that is a part of it. And so what we are going to now have to do is prove our citizenship, prove our residency, prove a bunch of shit that is just not necessary to prove that we know how to drive in order to get these IDs. So, I mean, we come to the same place, Andrew. I think it's extra paperwork for no good reason. Like, if there's something that does require citizenship, like a passport, that's where it makes sense to prove it. But this is something that it was done by Congress via Dingleberry. It wasn't voted on by itself. And then it was extended via Dingleberry over and over again. So I remember the bill that extended it in 2022. It was a government funding bill. They just attached it, and they've done this over and over again. And so for 20 years, we've had this coming, but we haven't had the national conversation about whether or not it's necessary, because it was never a standalone issue. And so here we are, it's being enacted today. I'm not surprised that 17% of New Jerseyans have gotten the Real ID, because people in New Jersey, at least the ones that are near New York, a lot of them don't even drive. So I think the people that live in states where you have to drive over the past 20 years are just like, oh, screw it, I'll get it. But people who don't have a driver's license, like, this is a hassle just to prove who you are. That's just, it's dumb and anti-immigrant, but here, that's kind of our country in general right now.
Real quick, I also am not convinced that the federal apparatus is necessarily going to be brilliant at this. So, for example, my current passport's very boring. It's me looking into the front like usual. When I was getting my master's degree 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever that was, I had my first passport, my very first passport, and it was dog-eared, and it was, I'd sat on it like somebody'd stolen, not stolen it, it gotten wet. It just wasn't working. And I flew into Edinburgh, where I was studying from Germany or something. And the guy at the border was like, all right, we'll let you in this time, but I'm making a note, we're not letting you back in. until you get a new passport. This passport's not serviceable. Yeah, I'm going to make the exception for you, but you have to get a new passport or you can't come back in. And I was like, well, where do I do that? And he said, oh, it's no issue. There's a consulate right here in Edinburgh. You can just do that. And I went, great. So I went to the American consulate and I have to get my photo taken and I smile and give a thumbs up.
Oh,
and
no.
the person that's taking it's like, you're not supposed to smile. And I went, they said it was fine. And he goes, okay. And so I was the only American for a decade smiling, giving a thumbs up in his passport photo, which I'll argue is actually more effective for me. Like it's like it actually will help you spot me quicker. But like, I don't know, for me to violate federal law just took me going, no, it's fine. And everybody was like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks, man.
I'm surprised they accepted it because they're pretty strict about those types of things.
I suspect it's probably because it was at a consulate and the consulate was, as per usual, hiring lots of local people to work there to do the day-to-day jobs as opposed to federal employees. So I was interacting with a Scot who was not an American citizen, who was probably doing a reasonably good job, but also like isn't a member of the State Department. And so when I'm like, nah, it's fine. America said it's good. He's like, oh, all right, I'm off at 4.
Well, I mean, to be fair, here in America, where you get your photos, like the lady at Walgreens knows not to do a thumbs up. So it's like the people at the consulate, I would imagine, would do better than the Walgreens lady. But
this works.
Wrong.
When I was at Fox, I did the exact same thing when I was at Fox Business. I had to get my ID taken and I like pointed at the camera like this, where my hand looks gigantic and I'm grinning. And they're like, you're not supposed to do that. And I was like, no, they said it's fine. And they were like, okay. I've done this multiple times. Just do
Why do you do
want.
this?
I think it's really funny. Just like not every time, but a lot of the time I'll just do something funny and they go, oh no, they said it's fine. And so far, every time I do that,
well,
I go, okay.
The worst case scenario is they go, well, but I'm saying it's not. And you go, you're right, it's not. You just don't do it. Like, there's no consequence.
There's very like, this is pretty low risk for all Heaton's wackiness.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, out of the three of us, do any of us have a real ID?
I was about to ask this, and I feel like both the jury duty and the passport conversations have given me the answer, but I do not. I use my passport when I
don't either.
I do, yeah. Because I, pursuant to our earlier conversation, had to get my Oklahoma ID.
Sure.
Last year, 2 years ago, I don't remember when it was, but in any event, the state had shifted over. I don't remember filling out any of this paperwork, by the way. I got it in Wagner, Oklahoma, because that's where our family's cabin is. And I don't think I was living there at the time. I think I was in Austin, but I was up there like just visiting, kayaking with my dog. The dog would not go in the kayak. He would stay at the house, but I would go kayak.
Okay.
And went and did that. And I don't think, I mean, for one, I don't live in Oklahoma. So I don't think I had any bills or anything. I think I just gave them, I think I just gave them my old address or my old ID. And they're like, we got to do a new ID. And I'm like, great. And they're like, any changes? And I'm like, yes, that says I'm 5'10", because I haven't updated this since I was 16. I am in fact 6 foot. Can you please revise that? And they were like, yep, here you go. You're 6 foot now. Anything else? And I was like,
5'12".
nope, everything else is exactly the same, including that I live in Oklahoma. Thanks. But again, I'm not trying to pull anything. I just like, I relate to Oklahoma. It's symbolic.
I wish you had told him. Yeah, I'm 5'12". They told him it was fine.
Yeah.
You can put that. It's all good.
Yeah. 5'12". Yeah. Or just like I'm 6'3", and they're like, I'm 6'3", and then like put that on dating profiles. Like, here you go.
I was 5'12" would be really funny on a dating profile. Is exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I think
so
I
funny.
think that'd be perfect.
Yeah, and if she gets the joke, she's the girl for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a passport card as well. So back in 2021, after they relaxed restrictions on international flight, there was still real, you had to show your vaccine card and stuff. You could travel internationally. I didn't go to Scotland in 2020. It's the only year I've not gone to Scotland since I lived over there. But I was able to go back in 2021. I, being a mess from the entire pandemic and just not having thought about my passport at all during that time, did not realize that my passport had lapsed. It had expired.
Yeah.
So as I was going to the airport, like looked at it and was like, oh shit, I don't think I can talk my way out of this. I think that they're going to call me.
They said it's fine.
They said it's fine. So I and I was in DC because I was doing some stuff for Reason at the time. And so I tried to get like an emergency meeting with the State Department. They're like, maybe in 3 weeks. And I was like, I'm flying out tomorrow. And they went, after talking to several people, they were like, okay, here's what you can do. You're in DC right now? Yeah. if you will fly to Aurora, Colorado tonight, you could go to their consulate or their like sub department, whatever, tomorrow morning, and they could probably get this expedited to you in 2 days or something like that. So I did that. And then when I was there, they're like, do you want a passport card? And I was like, why not? So I got a passport card too, which is useless. It like, I think the passport card's literally so I can like walk across the Mexican or Canadian border without a passport. I believe so. But
yeah.
it's not an actual passport. I can't use it for international flight. I can kind of use it as an ID at like hotels and stuff, but it really confuses them.
Well, you can use it. So I just pulled up what you can use to get the real ID. And since some people might be learning about this for the first time, let's go through it really quick. It's actually not that long, but you need to apply for a real ID. So this is California's DMV. You need one proof of identity document. And so you can use a passport or a passport card. They say that's preferred. Or an original or certified copy of your birth certificate. An abbreviated or abstract certificate, those are not accepted. I don't know what those are, but they're not accepted. You can use a valid permanent resident card, a foreign passport with a valid U.S. visa and approved I-94 form, a certificate of naturalization or certificate of U.S. citizenship. You can get your birth certificate from a territory. You can use a valid employment authorization document. You can use, I already said that, a U.S. certificate of birth abroad. I think that's for people that are born on military bases. A valid foreign passport stamped processed for I-551 and documents reflecting TPS benefit ability.
Well, I guess on a positive note, then, Jen, it does sound like it's not just U.S. citizens. It's just anybody that's legally here, because there was like an employment document. Yeah. There was like, this would include green card holders, permanent residents, even people that are here on a temporary visa. They could potentially get a real ID.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like, because it's not, you just have to prove that you're here legally. It wasn't necessarily that you have to be a citizen. It was trying to stop illegal immigrants from getting driver's licenses. So, yeah, that was a big part of it. Give me just 1 second, because I know there's more requirements.
Oh, another thing I made my own press pass. I used a handsome AI photo of me that's not even real, but it's me like posing while looking into the middle distance at, like, I don't know, a cocktail party or something. Good job, Linsa. And then made a like press pass 2020. Now I should have put a date on it. I don't know why I did, but like press pass 2023, and like the political orphanage and all that. I keep it in my my computer bag, so that if I ever need to get into a building, it was like, whoa, look at that press, which is true, by the way. I don't think there's actually like a governing authority for press passes. Your company just makes one.
Yeah,
I
okay, like can I just interrupt real quick, because this is the part that was tricky for me as a digital nomad with no real license. So you have to prove your citizenship and have 2 proofs of residency. And this is where I feel like it's unnecessary, but it is what it is. So what you have to do is have 2 printed documents that show your mailing address. And so you can use, they say they prefer that you use a home utility bill or your cell phone bill. You can use records from any state or national bank, state or foreign federal savings association, trust company, industrial loan company, state or federal credit union, or any institution or entity that has issued a credit card. So like banks. You can use insurance documents with that address on it. You can use medical documents. You can use documents issued by a U.S. government agency. You can use your mortgage bill, employment documents, a tax return, your rental or lease agreement, school documents issued by colleges, universities, or local schools. You can use a change of address confirmation by the U.S. Postal Service, which, I mean, those are pretty easy to get without actually living there. You can use your property tax bill. You can use the deed to the property, a voter registration confirmation letter. You can use
there's a lot of them. I don't need to know any more of them.
Yeah, we don't need to know all the details, but the thing is, like, you need to get 2 of them. And I think that's going to trip some people up. So you have to do, so if, like, for me, I would have to do a passport, probably the voter registration card, and maybe my old ID. Like, there's,
but you can, since you can just use your passport to fly. So this doesn't even, like, you don't have to have a real ID to fly. You can use your passport.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
why
that's going to
bother?
be my go around until I can get back up to Seattle.
And
But
do you
it's
drive?
just a pain
Like,
in the
I
ass.
know you can drive, but do you drive normally?
Do
like,
I drive?
Yeah. Like, do you need to have a driver's license? Like, do you need to like revise all this? Aren't you going to have to do this next time you get a driver's license?
Yeah, but it's not up until like 2028 or something, or maybe even 2030. So it's like, this is just an extra. I mean, it is kind of a poll tax if you look at it, because it's like if you're
90% of what driver's licenses are. Same with tags. Like, does anybody find it suspicious that they test you one time when you're 16 and at no point for the rest of your entire
Drives
goddamn
me
life
nuts.
does anybody check to see if you're a shitty driver, including when you're in your 80s or 90s? That seems kind of weird. Seems like if you were a forklift operator, they would occasionally check to see if you're running into buildings or something. If you were a doctor, they would make sure that you were, a good doctor periodically. But no, because it's a cash grab. It's a regressive tax. I'm not saying it doesn't have a point. I'm not saying that you can't have driver's licenses, but the primary reason that states have them is a funding mechanism. And ditto with tags. Like, you could just have like a permanent tag and register the car, but they want to be able to get money on an annual basis. So you have to buy that stupid little sticker as a way to do it. It's not necessary, but we do it because not everybody pays income taxes, but a lot of people have cars. And so it's a good way to get people there.
Yeah, but
Mine
there's
was like
also
$90.
there's reasons to tax people's cars. I mean, there's wear and tear on our roads. Like there's actually a cost to it. There's parking spaces that we now have to give people for free for whatever reason. So it's like to carry all your shit around with you. There's societal costs. So I don't really have that issue with us charging money for driver's licenses. But if we're going to require IDs that are this strict, that restrict people's freedom of movement from state to state, that's where I feel like there has to be some option that is free. Otherwise, like, this just isn't fair. Like, it shouldn't be expensive to prove that you are who you say you are if they're restricting movement in any way. And that's why and the same with voting. Like, you want to do voter ID laws? Fine, who cares? But you should provide a free ID if that's what you're doing. And that's why I call these a poll tax, because more and more places are matching. You need to have a real ID and that costs money, and you need to have this ID in order to vote. That's where I'm looking at this and being like, okay, this isn't fair.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Jen, that there are externalities that come from driving, and that ought to be financed in some way. My preference would be to do it through a gasoline tax. I think rather than going everybody that drives is going to be taxed equally on it is not equitable or particularly good at incentivizing people. People that drive the most should pay the most. People that drive very little should pay very little. So I would say gas tax would be my preferred method of doing that. If the government is going to compel people to get IDs to do something or background checks or whatever, I generally think the government should pay for it. That's like, and this is we're nibbling at the details here. But yeah, like with this kind of thing, I'm like, all right, like, make me pay for gas. Don't make me pay for permission to drive a car.
See, I disagree with that too. As an EV driver, I don't think that it's right that my vehicle, which takes up space here in this community, doesn't get taxed at all because I'm not using any gas. So I think there should be a gas tax because there are externalities from burning fossil fuels that matter. But I also think the car itself is taking up space that could be used for housing, walking, businesses, all kinds of stuff. And instead we have these shit boxes all over the place. And I think they should be taxed because they're taking up space that we could use in more productive ways.
You're not paying taxes on the car. You're paying taxes on permission to drive. Anybody with a driver's license is paying for it, not people that have cars. But
that's what the car registration is.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's the tax on having the car.
Point taken. My bad. As far as the parking spaces go, I don't disagree. I think parking spaces are actually really, really bad use in terms of urban planning. The great Alain Berthoud, who's been on my program twice, very proud of that. Alain Berthoud's a fucking rock star when it comes to urban planning. He's an incredible mind, a really, really cool guy. Also kind of looks like French Jerry Lewis, wears an ascot. He's adorable. He's like 80 years old. He's adorable. But he would say from like a urban planning perspective, parking spaces downtown are like the most expensive real estate in the entire town, and you're using them for cars that you're charging like $6 an hour. And he's like, it's just it would make more sense to have parking lots or something and have people pay for those rather than having that space that could be used for something else. But again, I would rather do that more directly. I don't know. I don't like the tags piss me off because I know what's going on, which is that the state is pretending that this is wellness and safety. And in reality, it's a cash grab. There are good arguments for the cash grab. Just fucking be honest about it. Tell me that you just want money from me. Don't lie to me and tell me that this is for public safety and then never follow up with anybody for the rest of their life on whether or not they can drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I had to renew my license last year, and I think they prompted me 3 times to get a real ID. And every time I was like, I don't really think I need one. I have a passport. And they kept being like, okay, fine. And then like I would get sent to a new person and they would double check. I didn't have the documents with me to even do it if I wanted to, because I just went through the New York State page, which is, I would read, it's similar to what Jen read, except I can't even read from it because they make you do like a checklist slideshow thing. But I would have needed my social security card and a utility bill and my passport and my current license and all that. So it's
a lot of documents. It's annoying.
And it's more money. It's like, even, it's 12, it would be an additional $12.50. It looks like for me to have renewed last year, as opposed to just getting a standard renewed driver's license and using the passport that I have to renew next year because it's about to expire. But yeah, I don't know. It sounds
like you have a lot of paperwork in your future.
Don't I always? I just like it's funny how like frustrating going to the airport is becoming, though. Like every single time I have to go to the airport, like I feel like the TSA lines have become, and I have pre-check, but have become more of a headache. And I'm sure this is only
secret's out on pre-check.
I've become one of the
everyone has it.
Here, and I'm loving it. It's great. I walk up, they scan my irises like I'm in Blade Runner or something. And then they go, okay, thanks, Mr. Heaton. Just walk to the front of the line. And then they're like, he's fine. It's great.
It's so insulting. I swear the line cutting thing is only there to push,
to incentivize people to do it.
To push me, who's getting cut by Heaton, to be like, fuck this.
But it's like $200 a year. I fly often enough that I'm like, I'll skip the line for $200. Great.
Yeah, I just don't understand why there's a private company that's being given that access to our public airports. It's a principal thing. Although I did just get $156 deposited into my bank account because there's this lady on Instagram. I can't remember her name, but she follows class action lawsuits. And so Reuters apparently... Was it Reuters? I don't know. I'm probably getting all these details wrong. But one of the class actions, there was some company that was selling on information too clear. And so I applied for the class action lawsuit and just like magic, I got $156. And so now every time she releases something that is relevant to me, I'm just signing up for these class actions and I'm like getting cash just magically out of nowhere. I love her. Let me find her.
I just sent it
to Joe.
If you applied for Clear, were you eligible for that?
I think it was if you were with the newspaper or something, if you were a customer of them. Okay. I can't remember. And that's what's so magic about this. Like I probably applied for this class action a year ago.
Yeah.
And sorry. So that is her talking about chicken. So she's the lawyer Angela on Instagram. And so she follows all these class actions and she'll give you the website where so like the one I'm looking at right now, if you bought chicken anytime in like 10 years, there's a class action, which is basically suing them for acting as a cartel. And I've bought a ton of chicken, so I signed up for it and I'm hoping I get paid. It's awesome. Great. Yeah. So she's my new money-making opportunity.
Well, you can sign up for some of those class action lawsuits and then use that money at patreon.com/we're-not-wrong to help support the show. This week, we will be talking about the top 50 states. We'll see where everyone's state landed, what their it's usnews.com, so what they're using to make US News and World Report to make their rankings and see what was number one for the third year in a row.
Yeah,
I'm looking. This will be a fun one. It's gonna be it's gonna be a fun one. Well, in preparation for the upcoming papal, right? I guess I've never said this word out loud. Papal,
I would say
right?
papal, but I'm from Oklahoma, so it could be wrong.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not Catholic. I'll admit it here.
I am Catholic, and I don't have any idea.
Are you Catholic? Like, do you believe in God?
It's And this is what I'm afraid of. Like, this is exactly the conversation we're about to get into.
Catholic, right?
I was forced into Catholicism by my family. So I am trained as a Catholic. And the more they tried to convince me that their way was the truth, the further away I got from it.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't think you qualify as Catholic anymore. I think you could say I was raised Catholic, but like, I don't know. I mean, I defer to the
I don't adhere to it at all, but I know plenty about it, except how to say papal or papacy or whatever I don't know.
Papal.
In preparation for the upcoming papal conclave following Pope Francis's death, Catholic cardinals have turned to the 2024 film Conclave for insight, directed by Edward Berger. Again, another word I don't know. And starring Rafe Fiennes. That one I do know. I do know it's Rafe. The movie portrays the intricate process of electing a new pope, highlighting internal church politics and scandals. Given that many of the 133 participating cardinals were appointed by Pope Francis and lack prior conclave experience, the film serves as an informative primer. Its realistic depiction of Vatican procedures and dynamics has made it an invaluable, a valuable resource for those navigating the complexities of the real-life election process. So we turn to our Catholicism reporter, Jen Briney, our Catholic expert. What do you want to see in the next pope, and should we just give it to Rafe Fiennes?
I mean, I don't care. And that's, I know Justin hates it when I give that answer, but like, I truly don't care. I feel like it's an institution that was probably useful back when humans didn't know things. So they had to kind of look to ancient stories and But at this point, I see the church as a power structure. And so this is the election of the guy at the top of the structure. I think it's a power structure that's done a lot of damage in the world and divides people. And so I would hope that he would be a good person. Like, at least with the last pope, I was appreciative that he was saying we should stop having Israel bomb the shit out of the people of Gaza. Like, he was saying, like, there's horrible things happening in the world that are against our Christian or our Catholic principles. Like, so I hope it would be someone like that who would say, these are the principles that the church says we believe in, and here's how they should be applied in the real world. I liked that he at least had the backbone to call out injustices in the real world. So I hope it'd be someone like that, and maybe they could get people to listen, because I see a lot of people who say that they're followers of Jesus, especially in this country, who don't care about providing for the poor and, you know, don't actually follow his teachings. They just, I don't understand how they're able to support the policies they support and also say that they support Jesus. It's mind-boggling to me. So I would love to see someone that makes those connections and tries to make the world a better place. I don't have a name for you because I don't care enough to actually learn who these people are. And I won't celebrate or be sad when we find out who the person is. So I'm just hoping that it's a good person. And that's all I have to say about that.
What did you think of Conclave, Jen? The film Conclave?
So if it's accurate, which is a big if, because I have absolutely no idea how they pick a pope. If it's accurate, I did find it really interesting. And I liked that they showed very clearly that these are not people that are ordained by God. They're not like otherworldly. These are human beings who want the power. Yeah. And that's exactly what I would envision is going on in there. Men who want to be the most powerful person in the church, kind of backstabbing and doing what they got to do to get the position. Like, it's an election of a leader like any other election. I like that they portrayed it like that. The ending was weirdly woke, but I didn't see that coming. But just for like process wise, I did like that they didn't pretend that this person was a godly person. They showed that these are men. And I think that's something that we really need to remember when we're talking about the church. Because one of those shocking things to me when I went to Rome and went to the Vatican was the amount of ivory and gold that they had stolen from everyone in the world. And it wasn't like they realized they did something wrong and gave it back. No, they just kept all the gold and the ivory. And it's one of the most ridiculously gaudy locations I've ever seen in my life. And they killed a lot of people to get it. And so it's Yeah, the institution of the church is like, Andrew, you asked me, do I believe in God? And it's like, I don't know. I know that I'm a being that I'm amazed by everything that exists here. And so I do struggle to think that, you know, it's all just chance. I don't know. So I'd say that I'm maybe spiritual. I believe in signs, you know, and the universe is telling me to do something. I kind of follow those, and it's always done me well. So it's not that I can say that I don't, but I don't believe the church. Like I'm not a fan of that institution, and actually going and learning more about it. Every time I learn more, I'm like, oh no, this is a power structure.
Jen, everything you're saying about the church is how I feel about the U.S. federal government.
Seriously, they're so similar though.
Right. Because it's like I'll have conversations with friends that are not familiar with public choice theory. And they're like, well, no, because they're public servants, they're fine. And I'm like, all humans are human. All humans are to some extent self-interested. There are many different motivations going on. I'm sure there are lots of public servants who are very much publicly minded, but also don't want to have their department cut, would like status, would like more money, would like more vacation. Everybody remains human. Nobody's purged of their humanity by virtue of their calling. The U.S. government has all this money. There's all this gaudy, ostentatious display in Washington, D.C., and a lot of it we got from stealing shit from other countries. Yeah. So I'm of the same, everything you're saying, yes, for government. Will, in answer to your earlier question, who would I want? I'm thinking black guy. I think that'd be cool. I think it'd be cool if there was a black pope. That's what I'm rooting for.
Speaking of woke.
I just think it'd be fun. I mean, like I'm probably I don't know. My background's Eastern Orthodoxy, which is not Catholicism, but we're like cousins or siblings or something. And I'm not anymore.
You're on Team Jesus.
I'm a friendly. Well, I'm a friendly agnostic. Sometimes I'm a Buddhist, but I'm not a Christian anymore. I did an episode on the Political Orphanage on the bonus feed with somebody right after the Pope died, and he kind of walked me through, and he said that there's sort of three different types of popes. There are like popes that are chaplains. I think that Pope Francis was very much like that. He was primarily a spiritual leader. There are popes that are like CEOs, and I don't mean that pejoratively. What I mean is they're an institutionalist. They're there to primarily run the institution. There's some problem that they need to address, and there are popes that are theologians. And the previous pope, like the auxiliary pope that was living in the attic for a while, Ratzinger, I can't remember what his papal name was. He was that. He was there as a theologian guy. I like it when they're chaplains. I liked Francis. We disagreed on economics, but as Pope, as like doing the spiritual thing, I think he was great. He was very humble. He seemed like a genuine, very kind man, carried his own bags, like would, hug people that were disfigured. He seemed like a really, really good person. I would love for there to be a Pope that does that is inspiring to people in the Catholic Church and maybe even outside of the Catholic Church to be kinder to our fellow men and women. Yeah. Who's black.
I mean, I think it would be nice to show that doesn't always have to be an old white guy. So I'm kind of with.
It's going to be an old guy. Cool. It's not going to be anybody under 60. It's going to be an old guy.
Oh, no. Speaking of, did you see that you have to be under 80 to even vote in the Pope election or the Conclave?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
if you're over 80, you're considered too old to participate in this.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah. So they are more ahead of our government.
Church versus the U.S. federal government. Yeah.
I know. Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite aspect of Conclave, and I do hope Conclave the movie, I should say, and I do hope this is happening in real life, is that it is just kind of 2 hours of people pulling Ralph Fiennes aside to say that they need to whisper like their deepest, darkest secret to him right now. And he's like, but I can't, I'm sequestered. And this happens like 6 times.
Yeah.
And then and you know what? Makes for a pretty entertaining.
I enjoyed it. I thought the costumery was great. I love John Lithgow. John Lithgow looks great in that wig.
Yeah.
The cast, the whole cast.
I was like,
Stanley
John Lithgow
Tucci
should just have a wig.
Great.
And loved Ralph Fiennes in it. I thought it was a really fun film. Plus, like, I'm a sucker for like costumery and arcane rules. I'm like, ooh, they can't now, but it's the Tuesday of Saint Crispin, so now they have to have like the blue forms. I'm like, go on.
It's that mixed with like Gossip Girl, like, which is why it's like a pretty entertaining movie. It's great. It's if you haven't seen Conclave, I do recommend it.
To be fair, I was bored out of my head. I fell asleep a few times.
Oh no, I think it's great. I thought it was dramatic, but it's but also I was raised United Methodist, so I also have no attachment to the Catholic Church. So maybe if I did, I would be like, no, this sucks. I don't want to live in this environment. I don't know.
I mean, I was interested in like I said, the power structure part was interesting, but I don't know how much I can take it seriously. It wasn't a documentary, so I don't know if I'm like learning things or if I'm learning inaccurate things. I found it interesting, but there is a part of me that's just, the Catholicism thing was pushed so hard on me, in a lot of ways was really bad for me. And so I have bitterness that,
it's fair.
Yeah, it was 2 hours of kind of facing my own baggage.
Yeah,
I'm just like, ugh.
100%.
Plan to send my kids to Catholic school. Like, I would like to send my kids to Catholic school because everybody that I meet that went to Catholic school is an atheist that had a lot of sex in high school. And I have fear of those things. And as a gift to my unborn children, I want to send them to Catholic school so they get to have sex earlier than I did and like immediately go, oh, this is bullshit. I'll be like, great, terrific. Good job. Yeah. Now you are ready to rule.
There was one arc in the movie that I just had to laugh at because there's a nun there. Her name is Sister Agnes. Yeah. And in the beginning of the movie, you're kind of like, ooh, Sister Agnes is a bitch. And like, I had a teacher named Sister Agnes, and like, she was a bitch. That was real. She gave me over 30 detentions for not wearing socks that were high enough on my ankles. Like, she was just constantly picking on me. I couldn't stand her. But by the time I got to be a senior and I had dealt with her for 3 straight years, like, I kind of saw her as like a little pocket person because she was like teeny tiny. And so some of my favorite pictures from high school are at the end of my senior year, where me and some of the other people that we mutually terrorized the nun, like she terrorized us, we did it back. It was a whole thing. But we took all these like pictures together, and then we saw that she drove a Volkswagen Bug to and from like the nunnery to school. I don't know if nunnery is the word where nuns live, but that's what we used to say.
I think nunnery probably is apt.
I don't know, but she drove a Bug, and we were like, oh my God, you're a cool little evil person. So it was just kind of funny in the movie to see that there was a Sister Agnes who like throughout the arc became someone you're like, oh, okay, like you're a good person. You're doing a better thing. And so Joe and I were kind of just like, oh,
I've hung out with a bunch of monks in my day because I was super religious during high school and college.
Partied with monks?
Hung out. Well, I mean, you could call it that. Okay. I've drank with monks, but it wasn't in an excessive way. So when I was in my early 20s, I went to Mount Athos. For anybody unfamiliar with Mount Athos, when you look at a map of Greece, there's like 3 fingers hanging down. One of those fingers is Mount Athos. And it's effective. Like, imagine if there were a state in the Union that's just monks. Like if Rhode Island was just monasteries, that's it. That's Mount Athos. So there's a special district of Greece that's just monks. It is surreal to visit there. They have their own time zone that's completely different than the rest of Greece because and I'm not confident about this. I'm pretty sure they're just using what do you call them? Solar dials. Like they're just like, nope, the time here is 12:06. So like when you get off the ferry, you can't go in overland because the mountains are too rugged. It's effectively an island. You got to get there by ferry. You have to get permission from Mount Athos to visit. So basically you have to know a monk that writes you a letter, and then you get a visa to visit Mount Athos. And when you're leaving, they'll be like, well, that's world time. World time means not Mount Athos time. But Mount Athos time is like off by like 16 minutes or something because that's when the sundial hits. And them being monks, they wake up ridiculously early, like absurdly early, like wake up at like 3 a.m.
Are they posting on TikTok?
I got to tell you, Athonite monks are not super tech friendly dudes. They're very, this is about as throwback as you can get.
I just want to know their routine. That's all.
Yeah. Nope. These are candle folks, but because they wake up really early, I would wake up at like 6 or 7, to do prayers with them. And then we would go get lunch at like 8 or 9 a.m., which included wine. And I was like, this is terrific. Like I get to have wine at breakfast and it's totally fine because the monks are doing it. And they give you oizo. When you if you show up in the afternoon and it's hot, they'll be like, oh, oizo. And you're like, thanks, monk. So yeah, hung out with those guys for a bit and hung out at I didn't get along in my monastery. You did this
in your 20s?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get along in my monastery, but I found a monastery that was like all scientist monks. Like they'd all been like nuclear physicists or something. And they were like monk. And they like moved over and were there. And so I liked those guys. I got along well with them.
Are we going to have like a future retirement where Andrew Heaton becomes a monk? Like, did you like it that much?
No, before
Feeling
the
monkey.
way I got my into it was because I would go down to Holy Archangel's Monastery in Candalia, Texas. That was the nearest Eastern Orthodox monastery to us in Oklahoma at that time. And I would go down there on OU Texas weekend when all of my peers were getting drunk and laid in Dallas or in Norman, depending. I would drive 8 to 10 hours to go hang out with monks for a long weekend.
Why?
Because I really believed it, Jen. I was super into it. I was very religious.
Okay.
I thought that probably in my 50s or 60s, after I'd had a career and been married, you can get married in the Catholic or in the Orthodox Church. You can become a priest. But I kind of thought maybe I'd become a priest at some point. And I also monks are really, really respected within the Orthodox Church. Like monasticism has a really, really high place of esteem. And so I was like, I guess I should look into this. Maybe I should become a monk. But I wouldn't make a good monk at all. I think having now hung out at a lot of monasteries, I think monks tend to really disproportionately self-select for super introverts. And so when you read monastic writings, like the Desert Fathers are a holy tract within the Orthodox Church, and the Desert Fathers will talk write so much about, never speak unless you have a specific point. Idle chatter is bad. It is best to have your own company. And it's like, yes, you're a super introvert. Like this is for you, this is really good stuff. I'm an extrovert. I would make a really good friar. I would make a very good drunken friar that like wheels into town, like goes to the pub and is like, all right, who needs to be baptized? Like I could be that guy. I would not make a good monk.
I think you're there, honey. I think we've crossed the friar bridge.
Yeah. Technically, I am a friar. I was inducted into the Friars Club, but I was in New York City. She's not a Catholic friar.
I knew it.
Yeah. Larry King is the guy that inducted me. And when I got inducted into that, I leaned over and was like, am I Jewish now? And so he started laughing. I was like, haha, I got Larry King to laugh.
You have a weird life.
Yeah,
I was
agree.
just gonna say, Heaton could pause right now and be like, "Anyway, I made all of this stuff up, guys. You're gonna have to cut it." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We went way too far."
But we know he didn't. Like,
Of course not.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
You're talking about those basic college students. Like I 100% would have been at the football game. Like no question. Like basic.
While I enjoyed that storied past, I regret I regret how chaste I was when I was in college, as I wonder.
Well, you've made up for it,
and I wonder if maybe that's why. I wonder if perhaps if I'd been one of the more like median bell curve distribution of social life college students, if perhaps those connections would have happened in a more organic way, and like maybe I'd be married now. I don't know. There's no way to know it, but I sometimes wonder if maybe that like set me back.
I think you would have just added more slut years to your slut years.
Also good. Would have been fine with the bikini shaped bell distribution of slut years of like a lot in my early 20s and then a lot in my 30s.
Well, I don't think the next pope will be in his slut era, but you never know. You never know.
We've had some
that would be
popes.
Amazing.
If anybody wants to check out a very funny episode, so we don't do it very often, but I sometimes host a funny history podcast called Losers, Pretenders, and Scoundrels. And my co-host and I, Andrew Young, did an episode on the bad popes, and they're real bad and they're real funny. Like one of the popes got murdered because he was banging some guy's lady, and like the guy came home and killed him with a pitchfork or something ridiculous like that. There was like a guy that he was pope and he like just flat out sold the papacy, like while pope. Like sold it and then retired. And then like 10 years later was like, actually, I'm still Pope. I feel
like that's something Trump would do if we actually allowed him to be Pope.
Yeah. I think Trump would have made a fantastic 14th century Pope. He would have been great as like a Borgia Pope. But as like, a saint type Pope. I don't think he's really the best.
No, I don't think he's up for it.
I don't know. The fact that he's publicly said he doesn't feel like he needs to ask Christ for forgiveness because he hasn't done anything bad. I'm like, that's kind of a bedrock principle within Catholicism.
A little bit.
Well, we're not wrongpod@gmail.com. You can write in and tell us all about how Heaton should be the next slutty pope. We're not wrongpod@gmail.com.
You know what? If they start letting in agnostics, I'll become a bishop. I think I'd be good at it.
There we go.
See, he's on his way.
Not the Mama writes, fun fact, the voice of the baby on the show Dinosaurs was Kevin Clash, best known as the longtime puppeteer and voice of Elmo. Kevin also voiced Splinter in the first 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
I love that fun fact so much. That's so great. Elmo's the best. And of course he's Knock the Mama. I love it so much. Wasn't John Lithgow in Dinosaurs? Or am I thinking a different? Oh, no, I'm thinking
think he was
some from the Sun. Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock from the Sun. Yeah.
He was great in Third Rock from the Sun. Oh my God.
Really
he's
funny.
So good in that.
He was so good.
He's so fucking funny.
Will Someone Think of the Children writes, I have a little insight into what Justin was talking about on last week's episode with methods of teaching reading. A couple of decades ago, they came up with this method that uses sight words, which essentially teaches kids to just memorize the shape of words instead of learning the sounds that letters and combinations of letters make. The thought behind it was that learning to speak or learning a new language is primarily done through word recognition and vocabulary building, with grammar coming in afterward. As it turns out, speech is something that evolution hardwired into our brain, reading and writing not so much. When I met my stepdaughter, she was 9 years old, in 3rd grade, and could not read, not a lick. She could identify some very short words, and that's about it. If she encountered a word she had not memorized the appearance of, she couldn't even try to read it. And worse, she had been taught in school to simply guess and then move on if she couldn't recognize the word. When I found out how they were teaching her in school, it made sense. I wasn't going to let it slide, so we hit the books, and I taught her to read the way I was taught, with phonics. In a couple of months, she was reading and writing paragraphs.
Wow. That's wild.
That's
actually why I think I'm bad at math, though, because I picture the numbers. I don't actually conceptualize what the numbers mean. Like, I'm matching the numbers together. So if I don't recognize the match of the numbers, I really struggle to like get there. I'll get there eventually. But I think that's just a symptom of me being visual because I wasn't taught to do it that way. But if I was ever taught to do it that way with words, it doesn't even make any sense.
I used to spend some time in Enid, Oklahoma. Shout out to Enid. And my favorite billboard in the country was in Enid, Oklahoma. And there was this big billboard at the time that said, "Can't read? We can help." And there was a number you could call. And I was like, "You're just taunting illiterates. Like, why? What are you doing?"
That's a good point.
This one goes way over my head, so hopefully it makes sense to Jen. Kill Tony fan writes, Jen, do you think Adam Ray as Dr. Phil looks like kind of looks like a bald Justin Robert Young?
Yeah, I could see it. If Justin shaved his head, I could see
Fair
it.
enough.
Yeah.
We got to get Justin to shave his head.
That's funny. Justin did
Rand,
shave his head. It wasn't even that long ago.
Right. I forgot. Oh my God. I forgot about that. Yeah, no, I knew Justin when I'd already met Justin when he did that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Totally forgot about that. Ayn Rand fan writes, one of the best filters I've come across regarding Ayn Rand's writing is Ayn Rand's heroes are fake, but her villains are real. I would be interested in knowing if the hosts agree with this idea, even if her idealized Galts and Rourkes are impractical or simply incorrect. We seem to be living through more and more of the philosophies and people which she cast antagonistically in her novels.
This is not for me.
I was about to say, have you read any Ayn Rand, Jen?
No. It's such a stubborn thing because I've heard that they're good novels, but the people that love Ayn Rand are so fucking annoying to me that I just don't even want to. I don't want to be in their world at all.
I do not think they're good novels. Or I've only read one. I read
Atlas Shrugged. Probably.
I read The Fountainhead. I didn't read Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
I read The Fountainhead, and I didn't think it was a good novel. I actually thought it was very poorly written. And I say this because none of the characters have any arc whatsoever. They're all 100% them the entire time. The only character that's interesting is the villain. And like when I would mention this to my friends that were Ayn Rand people, they would get mad at me and be like, "But you're not supposed to like him." And I'm like, "He's the only interesting character. Every other character is exactly the same throughout the whole thing." So I didn't enjoy the book, and I don't like Ayn Rand. I was told that I would like Ayn Rand because I read The Fountainhead when I was just encountering like P.J. O'Rourke and Milton Friedman. And people were like, "Oh, you'd love Ayn Rand, reader." And I was like, "I do not like this." And partly I don't like her because I don't like the whole like cult of selfishness. And maybe this is terminological. I think that's part of it. I think she was intentionally trying to troll people. But like, I do think people are self-interested. I think that the kind of the reason that capitalism is so productive is that you're taking aggregate self-interest that gets converted into macro pro-social behavior. Like that's why capitalism's good. You're acknowledging the reality of self-interest and then funneling it into a way to help people. So if that's what she was saying, I'm with her. But I wouldn't call that like, yay, selfishness, because selfishness is an inherently pejorative term. So like, it's the difference between like killing and murder. There could be justified killing, but murder, like, is bad, right? So I was like, I'm just not getting into this. I don't want to. Maybe it was terminological and trolling and all of that, but I'm just like, it's not for me.
Do you guys know they made a trilogy of Atlas Shrugged films a decade ago? A little more than a decade ago, that all three of them flopped, and they flopped so hard that they would have to get an entire new cast for the next one. So despite being like the same production company and producers, like each one has like slightly lesser known actors, to the point where the third one is just like, I don't know a single name in this movie. At least like part one had like Taylor Schilling, who was on like Orange is the New Black, like that's a name I know. And then like you go through it, it's just like, oh, like every single movie is just like, you know, every now and then like Ray Wise is in it, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know Ray Wise, like, but largely speaking, it's just so funny that like they made three of these movies and the market said no thank you, but they kept making them like for less and less money. Yeah, I don't know, it's just
that's hilarious. Yeah, I certainly wasn't watching them.
I don't think many people were. I'm sure I am the first person to talk about these in 2025. American Dread writes, my wife and I are both Canadian citizens working in the Midwest on TN visas, the skilled worker visa tied to whatever NAFTA is called now. My wife is in healthcare and I work in STEM, both with advanced degrees. We are the people that are supposed to be coming in on these visas. That being said, my wife had to travel back to Canada recently for a funeral, and we were both very worried about her coming back to the US. As it turns out, she had no issues crossing. They asked a total of 2 questions, but even with that history, our fear of leaving the US to visit family is very real, as we don't know what will happen next time we cross.
That's fair. I'd be nervous too.
I can speak a little bit to this just because I live so close to Canada, and I have not crossed this year the border, but my parents, because my family owns land in Canada, they cross like every other weekend usually. You know, I can't speak, you know, based on like the immigrant status, since they do live here, but like they have said that the border has felt normal to them.
Oh, good.
They have not had any issues. And now granted, like there are lots of crossing locations and it depends on where you go, but like and who you get. And I've certainly had bad experiences on both sides of the border from like a either Canadian or US agent who just feels like being a dick that day. But yeah, I mean, so far it sounds like things have kind of been status quo. You know, again, my parents cross all the time, and I'm sure that's in their records or whatever, and so they have the easiest time coming and going. But
did I ever tell you all about the time I got in trouble for presumed gun running in England? Has this come up before? I don't remember what story is. Okay, I'll skip it. Yeah. Please keep going, Will.
Well, I'll tell you this much. The people that seem to be having troubles coming into the United States are people who have some kind of visa issue, and people who haven't had accommodation. So there was a pretty famous story now. I think they were German hikers, that the point of coming into the United States was that they didn't have accommodations because they were going to hike some really long trail.
Right.
And so they got detained because they didn't have their... So if people are coming here, make sure your visa is all set, like no questions, and make sure you have everything booked so you can tell them this is where we're going to be and this is when we're going to get out. And that's one way to protect yourself. But it's just... I understand why people are like, I don't even want to take the risk. I'll just go to Europe this year instead. Like, I get it. Yeah. You know, the fact that that's even on the table, that you would get strip searched and thrown into prison for an undetermined amount of time. Like, I wouldn't go to the country if that was possible either. So I get it.
The worst time I ever had crossing the border was going into Canada with a bunch of my friends, and we got stopped for we didn't get detained or pulled over or anything, but we must have been there for like 10 minutes at the gate talking to this agent who was very confused as to why a bunch of 20-something guys didn't have any booze with them crossing the border. And the reason we didn't is because you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Like, you are not supposed to cross the border with booze. You're supposed to buy it there. And that's what we always did. We would cross the border, and then on the way to where we were going, we'd stop in LCBO and buy booze. I talked to my parents about this afterwards, where I was like, yeah, it was like a really weird, like it seemed like it got tense after we said we didn't have booze. And my parents were like, yeah, your best case, what you should do, because they expect you to have stuff, is just take a 6-pack of beer and be like, yeah, we have a 6-pack of beer, and they find that less suspicious than you not having anything. Like they will ask you fewer questions. This was probably 5 years ago.
That's so weird
at this point. So maybe it's changed, but and I think that was the last time I went up with my friends. So it has been, it hasn't been a bunch of guys going up seemingly to party, but yeah, it's I've always found, to your point, Jen, that like the more specific you can be in giving answers, the faster you're going to get through it. Yeah.
And always say you're here as a tourist. Never, even if you're like working remotely, like you're tourist, the end.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. American Dread writes, nope, we did that one. Horwatch writes, the next time heat and sluttiness comes up in conversation, which was like 10 minutes ago, I hope jury calls them quantitatively easy. Heaton would laugh at that.
Nice. I like it. Yeah.
I like it.
On the Spanish blackout, Colonizers Out writes, I can empathize with the Spanish folks who hate tourists. Our neck of the world exploded with tourism during COVID, and it's a real problem for the people who live here. But this is Minnesota, so we won't get you with squirt guns. We'll just be very polite, then talk about you after you leave.
I love Fargo. I realize it's set in North Dakota, but I think the accent's awesome. Like, it's great.
Oh, yeah, it's so cute.
Okay, then I guess we murdered a guy then. Okay, well, we're going to have to bury the body, won't we? Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I played volleyball yesterday with 3 Canadians, and one of them yelled "oot."
Oh God!
And I laughed pretty hard.
On tariff transparency, I got the receipts. Writes, tariffs and import duties are line items that are already tracked on P&Ls, so they can easily be displayed on a receipt. There is no way that inflation can be accurately displayed on a receipt without being subjective. So the clapback from the White House towards Amazon is at best low IQ. And this is another phrase I feel like I haven't said out loud. The de minimis exemption, however, is something that should absolutely be axed.
You said that right.
Partially agree with you on this, listener, in that it's much easier to track the tariff duties than it is inflation. I don't disagree on that. Where I'll push back a little bit is the import duties are not the only cost of the inflation. So while I think it's totally fine to do that, and I'm as we talked about last week, if Amazon wants to include that, go for it, Amazon. There's still going to be price inflation on top of that. I guess that's what I would add is there's also going to be additional price inflation because if I am running an American refrigerator company, our parts aren't from America. We're assembling it in America, but some amount of the parts are going to be from other places. And it's going to be difficult for us. We now sell our refrigerator that costs 10% more because all the lug nuts have doubled in price or whatever. And we now sell that to a furniture and appliance store. They're going to have a difficult time being able to go, this refrigerator costs 20% more, we think, because the supply chain now has individual intermediate parts in it that are subject to the tariffs. But the overall, though, I agree with you.
Washington Booze Enjoyer writes, I live in Washington State. We have notoriously high liquor taxes up here in the Evergreen State, and this is a tax that is applied before you ever even get to the register. So it's included in the price you see on the bottle or shelf tag. It is common practice for stores to indicate on the shelf tag how much of the price is the Washington liquor tax. They want to make sure the purchaser understands why the price is so high and that it's not just the store jacking up the price.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There we go. Sorry, the document froze. There we go. Sir Charge writes, I work for a distributor in the construction industry. All of our manufacturers are doing their best to keep up with the ever-evolving upcoming tariffs and are trying to be transparent with their customers. For the most part, they're accounting for these hopefully temporary material increases by including a surcharge. Since January, we've received weekly emails from various manufacturers telling us what surcharge they will be adding and when to expect it to take effect. When we are invoiced, we see the surcharge on a separate line item. I see no difference between this and any retailer, Amazon seller, or otherwise. Side note, one of our ongoing projects is with an unspecified government agency and is slated to carry on until at least halfway through 2027. We have a contracted amount, but they've been informed any change order products requested beyond a certain date will be subject to escalation charges upwards of 20% due to tariffs. They've told us they expect to see our manufacturers' pricing to back this up, but they are unwilling to accept surcharges as part of the price.
That's interesting. I think the word that really stood out to me there is hopefully temporary. And it's funny how many people are just kind of like waiting for Trump to cave on this. Like, I don't think anyone really believes that 5 years from now that we're still going to have this level of tariffs. So it's like if the goal is to bring all the factories back, it's like you need to have a long-term strategy. And I don't think anyone believes that that's what this is. Like as soon as the shelves start to empty out, I think we're all just expecting Trump to cave. I know I am.
I am. Yeah. I don't want to say I've stopped being stressed about this, but I have adopted the mindset of things could have changed while we're recording this show. Things have changed while you guys have recorded this show.
Multiple times.
So to me, like, I'm like, okay, I'll just like, there were a bunch of different like upgrades for my like work setup I was planning on buying throughout this year. I kind of just pushed them all up and bought most of them already. And otherwise, I'm like, okay, like I'm probably all set to kind of hopefully ride this out on like the more expensive gear I would need, and fingers crossed that things settle down in the next 12 months or something. But I can't spend every day stressing about something that can just change on a whim. Like there's no rhyme or reason for it.
Well, and so here's where I worry about it, because like, when I think about stuff that comes in from China, we're focusing a lot on toys and equipment, things like that. I know that a lot of pharmaceuticals also come from China. So my bigger fear is that some of the shelves that might end up empty would be medicine shelves. And that's what would have life or death consequences. And those are also the things that you just can't see coming. Like you think you can protect yourself. Like I bought the computer, because I drowned it. So obviously I had to do that. But then I also bought a new phone, and that was kind of a tariff purchase because it was like, all right, it's going to probably save me $1,000 in the long run. I'll get it now. You can kind of prepare yourself with stuff like that, but it's the stuff that we don't see coming. It's the stuff that we weren't aware came from China that is just not only like, it's not more expensive, is simply not coming. And that's what I didn't quite realize until I saw a couple interviews now with the executive director of the guy who he runs the Port of Los Angeles here. And he said the traffic is down 30%. That's enormous. So it's not that they're, these companies are paying the tariffs and our prices are going to go up. That is a part of it. But there are things that are just not going to show up. And that's more my fear, is the stuff that I can't protect myself from the illness I don't know I have. Or my family, like just bad luck that one of my family members gets leukemia, and that, that medicine that could save them isn't here. So that's more my fear. And it's those stories as they start to happen that's going to cause Trump to cave. And it's just like luck of the draw. Who are the people that are going to be the ones who have to tell those stories? That's the tragedy that I'm foreseeing and I'm afraid of. But like you said, like I can't worry about it every day. I'm still going on with my life, but I'm just I'm front loading purchases that I can predict.
Yeah.
I dumped a little bit of money into the stock market under the presumption that this is going to abate and that there's a dip. That being said, though, I think a realistic likelihood of all of this is not that Trump rescinds tariffs, but rather that he exempts companies that he likes, or he exempts industries that he likes. I think the Swiss cheese model is the most likely thing to happen because he just fucking loves tariffs. He genuinely thinks tariffs are a great way to build an economy. It's the only thing he's been like truly consistent about since the 80s. There's trade deficits are bad, tariffs are good. So he seems to really think that this is a good plan. And I suspect what's going to happen is he will meet with, Amazon and Apple or whoever, and they'll be like, look, you have to exempt semiconductors. Like, we just can't do this with semiconductors. And he'll be like, yeah, okay. We're going to, great negotiation, great deal. We've decided we're not going to do. And one of the problems with having a tariff regime is they are fantastic to like punish your enemies with and reward your friends with, because you can pass out exemptions to favored businesses or favored industries, and all the other ones still have to pay that tariff. So they're getting pummeled. So I think that's a realistic thing. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about everything Jen just said too. But in addition to that, since Justin's not going to hear, I'm going to make a political prediction. 2028, J.D. Vance will be the Republican presidential nominee. And I bet you he's going to say something like this. Now that I, J.D. Vance, am running for president, I am a free trader and I am not for tariffs. Tariffs made sense at the time. They were the right thing to do back in 2024. and we did them and they worked and we got the things that we needed done. Now that we've secured those advances and we've forced China to back down on the things China needed to back down on, having accomplished that, we're moving back. I think he's going to do that. He's going to have a real slippery way to tell you why he thought it was brilliant to have tariffs now, and he's going to completely reverse course on that in a few years. That's my prediction.
Most likely. And
Trump
I think
might do that. Like before, Trump might do that in 6 months.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
I think Andrew's right that Trump has really dug in his heels on this tariff thing. Like it's just one of those bonehead things that Trump really, really believes in. And my fear is that by the time we get to that, JD Vance or whoever the next Republican is, because like ideologically, Republicans are not for taxes. And so the fact that they're doing this, it doesn't make any fucking sense for that party. So I do think that they'll flip flop at some point. But the damage will have been done because the consequence of Andrew's scenario is that big businesses get the exemptions. Big businesses get their tariffs taken away. And once again, it's the small businesses that all shut down in the meantime, just like what happened in COVID. And so we just have more of a consolidation in this country, which it makes me so mad, but it does seem to be that that's where this is headed. Because small businesses can't go to Trump and be like, I'm going to donate 10 million to your meme coin or whatever the fuck. Like they can't do that, but the big businesses can.
I bought this $100,000 Trump watch, just so you know. I bought this $100,000 Trump watch. I'd like to talk to you about why our sector should be exempted from tariffs.
Exactly.
Canadian person brings us home. Listening to your talk about Amazon and displaying tariff fees, Amazon already does this. I live in Canada, and if I'm buying something from Amazon that doesn't qualify for Prime shipping or is coming from an international warehouse, it already tells you that there's an import fee that you pay. I've included a screen grab of an example, and I will hopefully remember to put this up on the screen for people who are listening or watching. This has been a thing for years and predates the first Trump administration, never mind the current one.
Interesting. They'll do it in other countries, but not here.
I know.
I think this is definitely one of my listeners. I'll tell you why. Because they sent us a screen grab of what they're importing there to Canada, and it's ReadyWise emergency food supply, 124 servings, bucket of freeze dried MREs. I'm like, could be anybody here, but if I had to bet money, I'd be like, this is one of mine. And you're right. By the way, I bought like three MRE type things the other day. I'm not.
What are you prepping for?
Okay.
What do you know?
Let me throw this out here. I don't think the grid's going down. I'm an optimist. I actually think life will be much better for my kids when they graduate from Catholic school than it was for me. I think like we're on the up and up as a species, I think. As somebody that's from Tornado Alley that has the weather try to murder them on a regular basis, and like, I know God wants to kill us. That's one of the upshots you get from living in Oklahoma is, God wants you to die. So as such, I think it makes a lot of sense to have like a water filtration kit and enough food that if something happened, if there were a flood, if there were a blackout like in Spain, that I'm not going to have to panic for a little bit. Like I've got a week or a month where it's like, I don't got to worry about that. I can go out and take care of my neighbors. So that's the mindset that I have. Now, all that being said, India and Pakistan are ramping up right now. And that is disconcerting to me. I did an episode on the political orphanage a couple of years ago. Jen, I know you listened to this episode on nuclear war. And the kickoff for that episode is explicitly what happens if India and Pakistan go to nuclear war. I use that as the primer for the rest of the episode. The reason I do that is in a boutique nuclear war scenario, just India and Pakistan, nobody else. One day, few cities destroyed. There's a very good chance that the ensuing amount of ash that would be released from that into the atmosphere would hurt global agriculture for 5 years by 15, 20%. And the estimates are that millions of people would starve to death. So when I started reading headlines about India and Pakistan, like today, Pakistan said, you have done an act of war to India. Like they're escalating. Probably cooler heads will prevail. But all that being said, I was like, you know what? I'll shell out $100 just to have another month of food, just in case. It's just insurance.
Yeah, that's fair. I should be going out and buying canned goods because the big one in California is we're still waiting for it. It's been 30 years. There's all kinds of things that can kill us.
If I lived in California, same thing. Like if the big one happened and like roads were knocked out for a bit, like just, I don't know, if shit goes down, I want to know that Wallace and I are fine and that I am empowered to go take care of my neighbors. That's where I want to be.
Oh, that's nice of you. I want to hide from my neighbors. It's a different It's a different mindset. I want to be able to stay in my apartment and never leave.
Okay, wait, here's the optimistic part. This is the optimistic part. Did either of you grow up watching The Twilight Zone?
I saw some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of it.
So like if you saw more than 3 episodes, at some point you saw an episode where like the lights go off and just everybody starts murdering each other. This was like an ever-present theme of The Twilight Zone. As my grandfather would say, the veneer of civilization's pretty goddamn thin. And the presumption that when the niceties are taken away, we'll be, picking our neighbors out of our teeth. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's how people work. I think people are cooperative.
Neighbors take care of neighbors.
Cooperative and good. I think that there's a tiny, tiny fraction of the human population that's sociopathic and needs to be locked up. But for the most part, though, if the grid went off, I think here in my neighborhood, you'd see people walking around checking on each other. I don't think that if the grid went down, everybody would, immediately board up their house and start poking guns out the window in case they came for their. I don't think that'd happen. I think most people would actually rally to it. And like I said, I'm going to be on the side of helping everybody.
When Buffalo got hit with that Christmas blizzard like 2.5 years ago, and my block was without power for like 2.5 days. Like I was texting my neighbor to be like, hey, like I have a generator. Do you need to like empty your sump pump? Like you can plug into my generator for 5 minutes if you need to. And like, cause I knew they had already moved to like a different house, but like with heat, and cause they had a relatively, I think they had a 2-year-old at the time. And meanwhile they were like, oh, do you want to come to where we are? Like we have heat. And I was like, I'm making do. Like we have the generator and everything. I'm our cat is a pain in the ass to move, frankly. So like I will stay here unless things get very bad. But yeah, to your point, Heaton, like no one came by trying to break into the house, but also it was a hurricane, a blizzard with hurricane force winds. So maybe it was too difficult.
Can I do a quick
make it?
Because we talk about so much bad shit on the program. People, I'm really deeply optimistic about mankind.
Yeah.
I think life's on the up and up. There are some black swan events that I'm afraid of, but they're they're high impact, low probability. But the safe money is life's going to keep getting better in the long run. So just a nice little story here. I'm sure that both of you had to read Lord of the Flies when you were in high school.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. And in Lord of the Flies, what happens? Like these kids get dropped off. There's no adults. And within a month, they're like dropping boulders on each other.
Yeah.
They're
Or
murdering
Peggy.
each other. They've formed a cult. There's a real life. Do you know this? There's a real life Lord of the Flies situation that happened, like where this actually happened. It was in, I think, the Philippines, or somewhere in the Pacific. There was a group of middle school aged, high school aged kids that wanted to like take out their dad's fishing boat. Like they like snuck out, took their dad's fishing boat out because they were going to like putter around and, like drink soda or something. And a huge storm happened and knocked them hundreds of miles off course. Like they were stranded on the boat for days. They got stranded on an island and they were out there for over a year. And an Australian merchant marine or some Australian shipping guy, for whatever reason, had to like anchor to do something and saw these kids and was like, there's not supposed to be anybody on that island. Like the book says this is uninhabited. So he went on the island, and in the year that the kids were there, they had started raising chickens that they found. They had built like a little village for themselves. Every night they would do prayers and sing hymns. And they had a rule that if 2 of the kids got in a fight, they had to go to opposite sides of the island, and they couldn't come back till they agreed to hug. That is the real thing that happened. The fishermen took them back to their town where everybody was amazed that they weren't dead. He dropped them off. And then about 3 years later, he came back and was like, hey, I'm actually expanding my company. Would you want to come work for me? And I'm sorry, I'm crying. They all became best friends and just like lived together on a boat the rest of their lives. It's a charming story. That's the actual thing that happened. People are pretty good.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. That's more interesting than Lord of the Flies, also, if you ask me. I just
less gripping. Probably like wouldn't make a good premise for Yellow Jackets if just all the girls were like hugging all the time. But the reality is
it would be funny if you were like, have you guys seen Yellow Jackets? There was a thing just like Yellow Jackets that happened with the spike pit and everything. I haven't seen Yellow Jackets.
Because in real life it was boys, but if it had been girls, it would have been a spike pit. Guys are so cooperative. Just historically nonviolent.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. I will do Justin's plug for him on PX3 this week, which I also serve as editor now on. It's just one episode because of jury duty. He had on Aubrey Sitterson, who's a comic writer. He's got a new comic out called Free Planet that is like sci-fi meets political revolution. So Heaton will probably.
Are you sure that's Justin's show and not my show? That sounds like my show.
It's a really good. I edited the show yesterday. It's a really good conversation. I had a lot of fun listening to it. So highly recommend you check that out. Jen, what do you have coming up?
So I am back to work on the Congressional Dish Patreon. I did last week in Congress. Congress had just taken 2 weeks off. And so I talked about what they did last week, and I wasn't in the mood to talk about Congress. And so not only do you learn what happened in Congress, but you learned my hierarchy of all the bands that I saw at the Beach Life Festival. And I'll tell you which one sucked the most and which one was the surprise, hit. I really wasn't surprised. I was really surprised by my number one. So yeah, if you want to hear that, support Congressional Dish on Patreon. And Congress actually did a lot. They passed a lot of suspension bills that I actually think do have a good chance of becoming law. So it's a good episode to check out if you want to have your voice be heard on these bills.
Excellent. Heaton, since you don't have a science fiction comics writer,
just skip me. It's fine. No, I have on an awesome guest. I enjoyed this episode. I have on Rebecca Allensworth. Is that right? Allensworth. Talking about licensing. Hold on. It ends up being an interesting thing. I had no idea how big it is in terms of the economy. So 1 out of 5 people in the United States, I think, have to have a license in order to do their job. The amount of people that are affected by occupational licensing is like 10 times that of the people that have minimum wage. Like we've talked about minimum wage on the show. That tends to be a big flashy thing that people want to argue about, ourselves included. It's a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of people that have to get years of schooling, pay fees, do studying, a lot of the time for jobs that don't fucking need permission to do. Like I would like doctors to be licensed. You don't need to have hair braiders license. That's bullshit. In Florida, you need a license to be a psychic. I'm going to repeat that. In Florida, you need a license to be a psychic. God forbid a bunch of bullshit charlatans start taking advantage of people in Florida. Thank God there's a licensing regime, but it's not there to protect people. And that's all stuff that I already knew, that it's a racket. A lot, I should say, most of it is a racket. Some of it's not. Most of it is a racket. I already knew that. The part that I was amazed by that I didn't know about until I read this book, until I spoke to Rebecca, is what a piss poor job licensing boards do actually governing their own. What we are told as the public is that these exist for our welfare. The good faith argument is, look, who better knows medicine than doctors? Doctors should regulate their own rather than having the government do it. We should have the government outsource it to a board of doctors. They'll make decisions on whether or not to suspend somebody's license. And the data is like for most licensing boards, not all, most licensing boards spend about 90% of their time just trying to find people that are operating without a license and shut them down. They're not actually spending that much time trying to discipline anybody because they're a protection racket. But for stuff like medicine and law, a lot of the time what happens is the boards feel great sympathy to their colleagues. They don't want to suspend their license. There are multiple examples in the book that we talk about of doctors who would like OBGYNs or gynecologists that would have sex with their patients, would have sex with at least 11 of their patients. In exchange for it, would give them opioids, which they knew would be sold on the street. And the medical licensing board would go, you're on probation. And then because they couldn't get insurance anymore, they would just be shuffled down to like the lowest level clinic of poor people. And so it ends up, the current regime we have is not one which is particularly good for keeping quality controlled. And I won't get into the solutions because she has I think some very interesting perspectives on that, which actually don't stack up with the libertarians. In case you think that this is libertarian screed, she doesn't wind up there, but I won't tell you where we wind up. That's on the Political Orphanage this week.
I like that.
There we go. When are they doing licensing for podcasts? That's what I want to know.
Thank God, robust freedom of speech laws and press are going to protect us from that. But okay. I'll make a prediction though. You're probably going to see life coaches get licensed in a bunch of states here coming up. Because there's people associate licensing with like status. So they're like, if our thing is going to be like a real thing, we need to have a license for it. And then once that happens, everybody kind of figures out on a subconscious level of like, the harder we make it to get a license, the less competition we have. So there's kind of a relentless push to expand this into multiple fields and then ratchet it up.
Yeah.
I had to have a license in Washington, D.C. to operate a Segway tour guide. Not anything to do with public safety, mind you. Not one fucking thing came up on the test about like traffic laws or public safety. It was all bullshit about the Octagon House and like when did Dolly Madison flee? Like it was why? You don't need a license to be a tour guide. That's stupid.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today. Obviously, go listen to the Patreon episode that we're about to record. But
find out how your state does and why Jen is pissed off or happy. I don't know.
You
Jen
can't look up the article. You have to listen to our recording to find out where your state lands. Well, for Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton and Justin Robert Young, who is not here as you know, I'm Will Sal.
Jury is doing his duty.
and we're not wrong. The Texas court system is, I don't know.
Nailed it.
Oh, I like it.
Thank you.
Dog and Pony Show audio.